I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Tim Walz. And we talked about him yesterday, but there's like glowing coverage, and they asked JD Vance about some stuff, and JD Vance had some great clapbacks and stuff. And they're also trying to, I don't know, make it seem like Republicans are making up the Democrats didn't want to pick Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish thing, even though that they've been talking about it in their circles and in the media, like we're not making this up, you know. But they don't want to take the credit for being anti-Semite, so it is what it is, I guess. So we'll be talking about that. I do want to get to the Elon Musk lawsuit if I have some time, but we'll see how things kind of go. I have to end my show a little earlier today because I have I guess an engagement where I have to get to. We have a revival this weekend in my church, and so we're just going to go around the neighborhood and, you know, pray for people and talk to people and encourage them to come out and stuff. So we're going to do that before we have our, you know, weekly Bible study. So I'm trying to get there as soon as possible. So so that's why I'll be ending it a little bit early today. So that's what's going on with me. And it should be a really great weekend. I'm very excited. We met these people who are coming to our church when me and my family went to DC. There were these kids who were playing the piano in the lobby of the Hilton, and they were playing all these worship songs. We really liked them and their spirit, and wonderful singers too. They seem to really love God. So we went to their church, which is in Virginia, and their mom was the pastor of the church with her and her husband and stuff. So we just, you know, had a great connection, and so we booked them. So we're very excited to have them. So that's what's going on. Anyway, I encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website. It does cost a stream and run my website out. That's stuff you guys can support. Appreciate it. You guys can also give stars on Facebook and on YouTube. You guys can do super chats. I do also have different merch you guys can check out at the store, different t-shirts and so on, and mugs. So go ahead and check out. I got the You Are Not That Special. We also have these mugs that say the same thing, so you can trigger someone in your life today. I also have these. We're getting to the pumpkin spice season, so we do have the pumpkin spice mugs as well that you guys can get if there's a Trumper in your life who would find that funny. So go ahead and check that out. Yes, Zia, it will be a wonderful night. It absolutely will be. If anybody's from the Metro Detroit area, you know, you're more than welcome to come. I will post it at least on my socials, so the information. But yeah, the church is in Rochester Hills, Michigan. So yeah, we'll have a good weekend. Anyway, let's get to the news. But today I was scrolling through TikTok, and I came across a live nobody had ever seen on my page before. And Tim Walz last night said, you know, mind your own own bleep business, right? And so that was trending on X, and that was their message, right? Let the women do whatever they want with their bodies, which is silly because we don't literally let women or anyone do whatever they want with their bodies. Certainly not kill other people. So there's some limitations on our bodily autonomy. So like, oh, government's not supposed to be in your business, which isn't true, because the government certainly does, get in the business when we start to aggress upon someone else. The governments are formed, to ensure or secure our unalienable rights, right? So, just think about those kinds of things. There are legitimate roles in government. So anyway, the person who had their TikTok, and I don't remember their name, but they had, Tim Walz rules or something like that, and mind your own business or something. And so people were saying all kinds of stuff in his comments, because he's saying mind your own business, but Tim Walz was one of the worst lockdown tyrants in the country. And I'm from Michigan, so I know Michigan was pretty bad. I don't assume it was probably as bad as like California or New York or Illinois or particularly Chicago and some places, but Michigan could get really bad and really stupid with our rules. And so I know it quite well because I live here. And so reading up on Tim Walz and stuff that they had to go through during that time, it's pretty bad. There's this one person who I follow. Their account is Boldly Growing Forward. This person is a detransitioner. I was following them. I guess maybe they were kind of starting to detransition, maybe, or heading toward that path. But I was following them when they were still, identifying as a woman, as a trans woman. And I didn't know his real name was Duncan, but I referred to him as the name that that he addressed, but I didn't use she, her pronouns and stuff. But I followed Boldly Growing Forward because they were a sensible libertarian kind of account, and they always believed in kind of nuance and remaining positive while talking about some very serious issues, and seemed very well adjusted, other than the fact that, parading around as a woman. So I actually had this person on my show before. I think I did an interview before somewhere on my account. Oh my gosh. I got to stop my story for a second because I just saw this amazing super chat. Oh my gosh. I want to thank you and say I appreciate your commentary and news coverage. Thank you so much, Megan. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. That's a bigums. Thank you so much. Wow. So anyway, thank you again. Thank you. So Boldly Growing Forward, they're never like super aggressive in their content, and like I've never really seen them go after anyone too much. And even if they do, it's still kind of lighthearted and nuanced. But they did a video about Tim Walz, and I was like, and they said, I can't just, I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I just can't allow this person to have this major platform and be boosted to the top of the nation without telling you guys what happened. And so he talked about how bad the lockdowns were, and how basically they took the power in 2020. Like, most people took executive action to remain in power, but he took it long into like the next following year with all the draconian measures. Like, people are having Thanksgiving and saying, please call and snitch on your neighbors and alert the police if there's people having turkey together. So like you have to show paperwork when you show up to your jobs, and all kinds of crazy stuff during COVID. But, when there were the riots, they made sure that they, erected stuff around the Capitol and different places where they were at, while everyone else, their place had to burn during the George Floyd riots, and people were in danger. So just an awful pick for the Democrats, but I know they're trying really hard to not talk about that stuff. I forgot to take this down, but they're trying to say that it's all about joy, and that they're positive campaign, and the Republicans are the ones who, oh, America's dark, they don't like the country, we're the ones for freedom and fun. But we're not going to tell you very specific policy things other than the fact that we want women to be able to have reproductive freedom even though someone has already been reproduced, and that's a really stupid thing to say. So they're really trying to hide how radical this guy is. I don't know why they didn't do deep opposition on him. Like, even like his military service, there's some things that are questionable there that folks have talked about in the past, but he's got a bit of stolen valor going on a bit that JD Vance will address in a clip that I will show you guys. But Tim Walz is awful. So anyway, this guy's trying to like stick up for Tim Walz and stuff, and people are mentioning that he had all these draconian lockdowns, and the guy says, oh, well, no one forced you to take the jab, no one forced you, because you could have quit your job, you could have moved somewhere else, no one forced you. And that drives me up a wall. Like, some people try to pretend like things weren't as bad as they were, but sometimes people will try to pretend like things weren't as bad as they were because because they're just trying to just go the route of, well, yeah, no one actually like injected you with the jab themselves. Like, you had a choice. You could have just not been able to work and not provide for your family, and you know those are decisions that you made. So it's crazy because they won't take that same kind of ideology when it comes to something like abortion. Like, if we said, hey, you're free to have an abortion, but we're going to ostracize you from society, we're going to make sure that you can never work again, we're going to make sure that you can never go to school again, we're going to make sure that you can't go to social places, and if you do show up, we're going to find you, we're going to arrest you. If we did that with abortion, do you know what people would say? People would say that we are coercing women and forcing women and punishing women, etc. And so this idea that people didn't force people to take the job, or at least coerce them, of course they coerced them to it. There are people who couldn't go to online colleges unless they were vaccinated. How stupid is that? How stupid is that? So anyway, he's trying to stick up for Tim Walz. So someone mentions that he's for late term abortion. And so the guy, now Tim Walz is absolutely for late term abortion. They signed a very, very radical bill in Minnesota that even removed protections and stuff regarding like if a baby survives abortion, removed that kind of stuff out. Very like up to the moment of birth, basically, kind of crazy stuff, really, really radical stuff. And Kamala Harris and him and other folks, they don't believe in limitations on this stuff. They don't want to pronounce that there should be any sort of limitations. It's just the truth. Like, just say it with your whole chest, just admit it, get out of the way, and then let's debate it. People don't want to debate their real issues. All they want to do is point to Project 2025, which yesterday at the very end of the show, if you're watching, we went to Kamala Harris's website. There's nothing about policy on there. There was a link when something about JD Vance and Trump was mentioned, and it took you to a website about Project 2025. and it was like, oh yeah, they support Project 2025. Nothing about like the real policy. Like, they want to ban abortion nationwide and stuff that I legitimately wish was true, but it's not. It's not. I wish, but it's not true. So they can't even debate on the real stuff. So someone says that, okay, that he's for late term abortion, and he just rolls his eyes. He's like, he's for women deciding what to do with their own bodies. So I decided to start screen recording the live after he said people should have they could have quit and all that stuff. I'm like, I need to record this stuff, but I didn't hear him say stuff that was quite as extreme before I started recording. But I'm like, maybe he'll say something, that's like that again. And he's kind of said something like that again, but not to the extreme extent that I first heard. So when he said that they just want a woman to do what they want with their own bodies, I start typing, and you can see me typing, there is a living human inside of her body. That's all I said. I just said living human. That is like objectively true. No kind of, humanizing language in there other than the word human. It's a technical word, but I didn't use any kind of language to soften it or make you all emotional like a baby or a child, even though it is a baby and a child. I didn't use those kind of terms. All I said is there's a living human inside of her body. And I saw him read my comment. He didn't read it out loud, but next thing I know, it says that I'm muted. And then all of a sudden I can no longer look at his live, and it switches to another live, and it says at the top that I've been blocked. That was the quickest I've ever been blocked on any kind of live. And all I said to this guy was that there was a living human inside of the woman's body. And there were other people commenting like, oh, he's deleting his comments. He's deleting comments. He probably wasn't deleting comments. He's just blocking everybody who was like disagreeing with him. That my comment was such a typical response to his comment. So typical and just objectively true. If you can't rebut that, refute that, and say, you could at least say, yeah, there is a living human inside of her body. It's a conflict of rights issue. And this is why I believe that the woman's rights do supersede the rights of the fetus, even if it is alive and human. Like, that's where we can go with the conversation, but just block. And it was funny because I was recording it. I don't usually like screen record stuff like that. And I didn't even know my phone my phone is like maybe 2 years old now, but really good camera and stuff on that. I got it at T-Mobile, and I told them that I do TikToks and video recording and stuff. So they recommended the phone that I have. And my last phone, you couldn't just screen record. If you're an Apple person, you're probably like, that's crazy. We could do that forever. But I couldn't really do it unless I opened up an app. So I just now looked at the top and I saw, oh my gosh, it's like something I can just hit a button and it'll do. So I did screen record it, and it's just funny that I captured him blocking me. So I think I'll add it on my YouTube shorts, but I did post it on TikTok. It's just funny. It's just funny. So anyway, let's get the JD Vance stuff. I'm sorry for the long introduction. So JD Vance, he was actually in Michigan where I'm at. And I didn't know this ahead of time. I probably would have tried to maybe get down to wherever he was, if I had known. I guess if they even announced it ahead of time. But I realized he was in Michigan because I recognized the guy behind him. Talking. So they're out in like Shelby Township, I think. And I'm not even sure what the whole entire event was for, but that guy right behind him in the suit, that's Pete Lucido. So I've had him on my show before, and it's been a long while, but yeah, I'm like, I know him. Oh, it says Detroit. It's not technically Detroit, but okay. That's just what the news they do, if it's like in that media market pretty much. But anyway, this is pretty interesting because the DNC is, the media is really trying to spin so much stuff so quickly.
Sir. NBC News. You have repeatedly suggested only reason Kamala Harris didn't pick Josh Shapiro to be her running mate is because of his Jewish faith. Do you have any evidence to support that assertion that a person who's married to a Jewish man is somehow anti-Semitic or bowing to anti-Semites?
Well, I reject the premise of the question. I did not say that was the only reason that Kamala Harris didn't choose Josh Shapiro. So you should, take a little less DNC talking points when you ask your questions and ask a real question. I have suggested that Kamala Harris was motivated, or at least her party was motivated, by anti-Semitism. And the evidence that I offer for that is what dozens of Democratic activists said in the run-up to her selecting her nominee. There were multiple grassroots activists, multiple media personalities, multiple people with influence in the Democrat Party who suggested that she should not choose Josh Shapiro because of his ethnic background. And look, I don't care what your ethnic background is. I know Donald Trump doesn't care what your ethnic background is. I do not want to live in a country where we're choosing who the next VP is based on skin color or ethnic heritage. Choose based on merit. And the fact that so many prominent leaders in the far left felt empowered to talk about Shapiro's ethnic heritage is a disgrace. And I think it's a scandal for the Democrat Party. Yes, I do.
So I had concerns about JD. And I guess, my concerns are still valid, I guess, when I voiced them in my confusion. But my sister had asked me, like, out of the people, who did you prefer? I'm like, out of his top, I don't really know. I wasn't crazy about his top, I guess. But I think that JD like I mentioned, like there's past things that JD has said about Trump. He has great explanations about how he's evolved in his thinking. And basically Trump proved him wrong with a lot of things. But people slap that in a ad and, you know, it's just like a shot in the foot. But JD Vance is a good attack dog. And I think that he probably handles these questions much better than Marco Rubio or Doug Burgum would have, or Tim Scott. You know, I think JD Vance is better with the media, at least from what I've seen, engaging in some of these questions. There are times when he seems to fall a little flat. Some different clips and stuff that I've seen at different rallies where it's a little bit awkward, but like as far as shutting folks down, I think he's really good at it. So I think he'll do well in a debate against Tim Walz, who did really good against Kamala Harris. And since Kamala Harris's team believes in sticking to original deals, why not still debate JD Vance? You know, if there's such sticklers about it. But he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Now, he is correct that the media themselves and Democrat operatives have been the ones talking about how, you know, it's a danger basically of or risk that Kamala Harris picks Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. And that's been something that's been said in the Democrat Party. People have noted that people were, hitting Josh Shapiro very hard with opposition research, harder than they did with like Tim Walz, for example. Most of you probably didn't know much about Tim Walz until they made the announcement and stuff. But, you know, people, and I don't know how much people know about Josh Shapiro, don't live inside of Pennsylvania and stuff. You know, my knowledge of him is, you know, definitely not the same as my knowledge on Gretchen Whitmer, because that's my actual governor. But people were dropping all this opposition research on him because they didn't want it to be him. And a lot of super progressive people are really happy that it's Tim Walz. But then now there's a lot of immediately as soon as they said it's Tim Walz, like X was going crazy, just listing all these crazy things that he signed and he advocated for, that he said. And people are like, do you guys remember the George Floyd riots? I'm like, that's reason enough to not pick him, I would think, you know? But there was this conversation on CNN. Now, if you've been watching me for a little bit, you know that I've played videos of them discussing how it would be a risk to pick Josh Shapiro. But I mean, here's a conversation on CNN about this with this. And it seems like Jake Tapper is kind of trying to rein in his co-hosts so they don't come off as too terribly anti-Semitic.
And I think ultimately Shapiro, I think fit is important. But I also think that when you look at the principle of do no harm, maybe they did say in a state like Minnesota, do we want to, those 100,000 uncommitted voters who came out about the Gaza war, do we want to antagonize those voters? Those are all part of the questions as well.
So, but can I just say,
Tim Walz also spoke conciliatorily towards those people. He said, look, that uncommitted vote is significant and those people should be heard. So having that kind of response, I think, is probably more of an open door to the parts of the party that have been very frustrated with the Democrats.
So, but just to one point on the Gaza war, Shapiro has the same position on Israel that Governor Walz, that Senator Kelly has. He's actually been more critical of Netanyahu than the other two, but he is Jewish.
And he's also the face of the crackdown on the protests, right? He spoke very vehemently about those campus protests as being anti-Semitic.
Not all of them. The ones that were anti-Semitic, he criticized as being anti-Semitic.
He was out front on the issue. So I'm wondering if that's the kind of thing that, again, for the activist wing of the party,
sure, absolutely,
they felt was a slap in the face.
Yeah,
but I also...
Yeah. So yeah, if there were the anti-Semitic stuff going on, he said something about the anti-Semitism. Duh. Jake Tapper's really struggling there with CNN just kind of stating the obvious that there's a lot of bad things going on here, guys, within the Democrat Party. And they really, I mean, even beyond the Josh Shapiro stuff, I was surprised when they started having these open conversations about how his Jewishness would hinder him being picked. Because why would you want to admit that your party has such a problem like that? Why would you want to openly admit that? Why would the journalists want to admit that? So I was surprised that they were even reporting it. So now it's being reported and covered as like a Republicans pounce kind of situation. Why? They do the Republicans pounce thing, and they ask the question of JD, and they're trying to phrase it as like, oh, the Republicans are just saying that she didn't pick Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. No, we like literally heard you say that. You know, you said it. Yeah, but you thought it. Yeah, but you said it, you know, from the line from like white chicks. Yeah, but they said it. They said it. And maybe we thought it, but that's because we have eyes and we can see. And we know that Joe Biden was pussyfooting around so much stuff revolving around Israel and Gaza and even these protesters. They don't treat these kids with burning the American flag and spray painting, you know, different monuments and taking down our flags and uplifting the Palestinian flags and who are pro-Hamas. They don't treat them the same like January 6 people were treated, for example, which Trump pointed out when he was at the Black Association of the Black Association of it's the National Association of Black Journalists. That's what it was. And he mentioned that like people aren't being treated the same. Like people see that one kind of chaos is shut down instantly. Another one, you know, they let this stuff go on because they're handling these folks with kid gloves because they don't want to upset their super, super progressive base. And, you know, I'm on TikTok a lot. I see these really progressive people who are obsessed with the Palestinian Gaza stuff. Like there was one content creator, they were going on a cruise or something. So they're like a Democrat and I guess they're pro, you know, Palestine and stuff, but people are mad like, wow, a cruise? You're going on a cruise while the people of Palestine are suffering? And they had to do a reply video like, what am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to do? I'm not supposed to live my life. Like, I can't stop the war. I've spoken up. I've done things, but I can't stop the war. So that's how these people are. They're obsessed with it. And so there's so many people who didn't want to support Biden and said they wouldn't support Harris or said they wouldn't support any kind of Democrats because they think that America is facilitating a genocide. And those are their words. So yeah, they're very concerned about these people. Instead of having a moment where you just tell them to kind of grow up so you can at least appeal to some of the moderates and independents in your base, because this is just stuff that's like chronically online. Of course, you see crazy stuff going on with people protesting and rioting, but a lot of these people are like paid agitators, you know, chaos agents. And if they just sucked it up and did their jobs, you wouldn't see all this nonsense across the country. But they let it go on. They let it go on. And they let it fester. So they've created this problem. They've facilitated it. It's like a little evil tree that they just keep watering. Let it take root, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. And if Republicans notice and say, hey, you guys have an anti-Semitism problem, they're like, oh, how dare you notice the thing that we said? Anyway, I got another super chat that I just wanted to point out from CM Thomas 07. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, anyway, there was another line from JD Vance that he just totally demolished. Tim Walz. So let me find that for you. So they asked about them mocking him because he went to Yale. Now that sounds pretty impressive. You know, that's where Blair Wardoff wanted to go in Gossip Girl. She wanted to go to Yale. And he did not come from money. you know. So anyway, here's the answer to this question.
Sir.
CBS Detroit. Last night, Governor Walz suggested that because of your Ivy League education and your Silicon backing your political career, that you yourself are part of the elite. What are your first impressions of them trying to frame you this way to the American public?
Well, look, I came from a family where nobody in my family had ever gone to law school. I grew up in a poor family. The fact that Tim Walz wants to turn it into a bad thing, that I actually worked myself through college, through law school, and made something myself, to me, that's the American dream. And if Tim Walz wants to insult it, I think that's frankly pretty bizarre. Now, look, what really bothers me about Tim Walz, it's not even the positions that he's taken, though certainly he has been a far left radical. You know what really bothers me about Tim Walz as a Marine who served his country in uniform? When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful to prepare your unit to go to Iraq, to make a promise that you're going to follow through, and then to drop out right before you actually have to go. I also think it's dishonest. Something, again, if you guys ever get an opportunity to ask Tim Walz or Kamala Harris some questions, he made this interesting comment that the Kamala Harris campaign put out there, and I bet they're regretting they put it out there now, because he said that and he was making a point about gun control. He said we shouldn't allow weapons that I used in war to be on America's streets. Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not. And if he wants to criticize me for getting an Ivy League education, I'm proud of the fact that my mamaw supported me, that I was able to make something of myself. I'd be ashamed if I was him and I lied about my military service like he did.
Boom. Yeah, folks are talking about the stolen valor situation. Yeah. That was a kill shot. And he also did a dig at the media there, saying, yeah, you could ask them if you ever get around to asking them questions, because Kamala Harris has been dodging. I don't know how aggressive they're asking, I guess. But she hasn't done like sit downs. She hasn't done press conferences. And you see these counters on Fox here. This is 90 days. 90 days out from an election, and very soon they'll have early voting in Pennsylvania. And frankly, there are not enough ads out from the Trump team, and people are wondering why and questioning, like, are you guys just not taking them seriously enough? Like, why isn't there just like stuff everywhere? People say that her stuff's all over YouTube. I bought YouTube Premium to avoid such issues, so I wouldn't know on that front. But she did pop up in some of my mobile ads, so she's getting around. I'm assuming she's probably all over the TV, all over those places, probably really in Atlanta and other places. So they got to really blast her and really show her record, because the media is not doing their due diligence. They did their job when they got rid of Joe Biden and they got him replaced, and they did their in-kind contribution to the Democrat Party. They're part of the operation here. Someone commented on one of my videos and they said, they said I was a plant, I think. They said I was a plant, vote blue, save democracy or something like that. And, of course, we're not a democracy. Democracy are wolves deciding to eat sheep for dinner. But it's amazing that people can just keep saying these buzzwords: democracy, freedom, liberty, blah. And the two people who were selected by the people were Donald Trump and Joe Biden. No matter what you think of those two people, they were the ones who were selected. Now, Donald Trump didn't participate in the primary in the way that I would have liked him to, but he didn't really have to because the people overwhelmingly wanted him. Okay. Joe Biden, the DNC, they would not entertain anyone else running against Joe Biden. They wouldn't entertain it. They wouldn't have any debates or anything like that. They just wouldn't allow it. That's why Kennedy decided to run as an independent. So DNC that was never going to let there'd be any kind of fair competition against Joe Biden, but he probably would have took it anyway. Okay. But so he shouldn't have ran again, but he did. Those two people were selected by the people, and they were going to be the ones who face each other. They faced each other at the debate. Joe Biden crashed and burned. Everybody said he was fine before. They were mad when Robert Hur said, hey, he did have these classified documents. He did know about them and he retained them. So yeah, he technically, did something he wasn't supposed to do, but he has such a bad memory that if we put him up on the stand and had this whole trial, people would feel so sorry for him. They'd feel so sorry for him. And after the debate, I think he has a point. People would probably feel absolutely too sad for him. So, maybe that was at his discretion. They didn't, pursue it forward, but people were so mad at him. Now he basically got Joe Biden off of something that he did that was not legal, but they have to be mad at him because he exposed Joe Biden. The transcript came out, but they didn't want the actual audio to come out, and they fought to prevent that from coming out because they knew how bad Joe Biden would sound. And so they were mad about that. And Joe Biden tried to say, how dare they mention that my son, anything about my son, when he was the one who brought him up. And his press conference where he tried to defend himself was awful. But they still fought for Joe Biden and stuck up for him. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and all these folks went around saying that he was fine. He was great behind the scenes. He had so much energy and he could just do the job. And they just stood up for him. They stood up for him. And after the debate, they couldn't stand up for him anymore. The videos that we saw that were cheap fakes, they couldn't stand up for him anymore. And they had to get rid of him. So they were asking questions nonstop. People were leaking stuff. People were reporting the leaks, saying that he only can work basically from 10 to 4 and he has to take naps and all kinds of different stuff. They're reporting about Joe Biden. Leaks just everywhere. Rumor has it that and he still didn't want to step down. His family still wanted him to stay, for reasons I understand that I think are crappy, and his family's crappy because he's obviously not in the best state and they're just making him go along with this. I mean, sure, he wants to too, but just bad people. They're bad people. Now, he still wanted to stay in, but all of a sudden on a Sunday afternoon, we get the news that he's dropping out. And rumor has it that they threatened him with the 25th Amendment. I'd like the media to ask Kamala Harris if there's truth to that. They probably will not ask, but I certainly would like them to. Because all of a sudden, he's like, okay, fine, I'm dropping out. And he didn't tell the American people it was because of his health, because obviously he wants to remain president to the end of his term. But he said he's doing it to save democracy. And he said he's doing it to bring unity to his party. And I said all that to say, and I've said this pretty much before, that Democrats are claiming that they care about democracy when the truth is that they're terrified of democracy because they don't want the people to be truly informed about the candidates. They didn't want people to be able to say, okay, this is America right now versus me remembering what America was like when Trump was president. I liked it before and I feel more confident with him. I might not like the guy, but let me vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. They didn't want America to be able to have that decision. These two men who the people voted for. So they took that decision out of America's hands, and the elites in the media and all these folks positioned Kamala Harris, and she became the person, and they won't let people talk about current politics, her past policies that are probably still her present policies. They will not really grill her, make her really sit down. Again, her website still has no policies on it, and she's 2 weeks into this thing. How long does it take to write up what you believe in, what you stand for, what you want to accomplish? when you're probably working on this stuff anyway, because you have your convention coming up, so you have to have a platform, and you already tried to run for president and you've been the vice president. That's something you could have instantly. That should have been done day one, but they don't want people to pick this stuff apart with a fine-tooth comb. And if she's really changed her past policies, there needs to be a discussion on why her past policies were stupid and why she's had a change of heart. I know she won't put it that way, and no one will put it that way, but but we need that kind of conversation. Like, you were for using executive orders if you couldn't get the Congress to do whatever you wanted in the first 100 days. So why is that a bad thing now? Why were you wrong before? How can we trust that you're not lying to us now to get into the White House? They don't want to ask questions like that. I would be surprised if anyone asks her any real questions during the 90 days, guys, 90 days, and 90 days till election day. But early voting starts pretty soon in some of these states, particularly, I think Pennsylvania might be the first one in the country. So like, we have month-long elections now. By the time Trump and Biden had their last debate, so many people had voted. Like, it was one of the Google trends was, how do I change my vote? So they're not trying to protect democracy. And again, we're not a democracy, but that's their buzzword. And they beat on their chest and they feel so strong and prideful because January 6th and Project 2025 and guys, let's be for real. You're not pro-democracy if you're supporting someone who wants to get rid of private healthcare insurance and reform the court because you don't like the decisions that they've made and they've contrasted the kind of stuff that you believe in. Tim Walz, by the way, I mentioned to you guys sometime last week that the reason why Joe Biden wanted to reform the court is because, like, conservatives or originalists, they look at the Constitution and what it's supposed to mean, and they look at the law and they rule based on that. Then there's people who believe that the Constitution is a living document. They want to, apply it with the times and other things like that. So Tim Walz, I don't have the clip pulled up, but I did see that he was a person who said that he believed it was a living document. Just to understand these kinds of people, and the reason why they want to have different reforms on the court and push people out and have all these negative hits on Thomas and Alito, and it is because they want to, if they don't have to pack the court by expanding the number, ending the filibuster and just putting like 15 people on there or something instead of 9, if they could just push people out and then change the majority and then put people on the court who just think it's a living document and you don't have to look at the actual intention of what was written at the time, then they can just create law through the bench. Because a lot of the things that they actually propose are not popular, like how they feel about firearms. You can't just go around to, like, campaigning as president like, I want to get rid of the guns. You can't do that. But can you get like some people on the bench who make some kind of ruling that, I don't know, makes so you can sue the manufacturers or ban the bullets and just ban all kinds of different stuff, ban popular use firearms like AR-15 and use some kind of logic in there for how many people are killed in mass shootings, and then that follows like, oh, actually more mass shootings are committed with handguns, so we can get rid of those too. Like, they want people who are going to fundamentally change our country through the bench because they can't make that case on the campaign trail. So that's what they want. They are the true threat, guys. They are absolutely the true threat here to democracy. So, which we are not a democracy. Again, that's the word they like to use, though. Someone once, I saw, maybe it was a meme or something, but gosh, forgive the language, but someone described democracy as basically, well, they said it was like gang rape. People enforcing their evil upon other folks and victimizing people, and they can because there's more of them than the victim. The purpose of not having a pure democracy or having something like the Electoral College is so you can protect the will of the minority and not just use the tyranny of the majority to supersede and take their rights. So That's why our system is set up the way that it is, because a pure democracy, like majority rules, what they want to do with like the popular vote and so on is very dangerous to our country. But it's really easy, I guess, to wrangle sheep, especially in these big inner cities. So anyway, that is about all the time that I have for you guys today, because I got to get going. So I told you that I'd have to end it a little bit early today. So we'll have to talk about the Elon Musk stuff tomorrow. There is also like a big streamer that apparently reached out to Kamala Harris. They have like millions of followers on Twitch, and I'm unfamiliar with this person. So my sisters were telling me that after Trump had his big like streaming thing the other day, I guess Kamala Harris's people have reached out to him to try to have something on his show, but he doesn't do anything with politics and his stuff is really goofy. So I don't know why these campaigns are so desperate. They just go have a real grown-up conversation with a news network. Like, that's what you should do. That's what you should do. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for being in the chat. Someone said you appreciate my channel. Thank you so much, Seven. Anna. Thank you everyone who watched it live. Thank you to those who watch back later. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website if you can. Also, make sure that you guys check out my video where I did the top 10 Trump hoaxes that the media made and pushed. If you haven't seen that, YouTube is definitely not pushing it. But it's one of the last videos that I made, and it's about an hour long, and it covers things like the inject bleach, the very fine people hoax, the COVID is a hoax, and but I put them in order to what I felt was the most kind of damaging to Trump and also the country. So feel free to watch that and to share that around. It's got some really important information with lots of receipts on there. So go ahead and check that out. God bless you guys, and I will catch you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. God bless.